Hello fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing today? I am genuinely so excited for this comparison right now. I just got in the mail yesterday the Adept Cosmetics Break the Rules palette. This palette was super hyped up. I missed it on the first round, but I was able to grab it in a pre-order. Here is what it looks like. It's super beautiful. It might even look like pressed glitters on camera, but it is not. It appears to be just really intense, beautiful, shimmery shades. And it's a Puerto Rican, very small indie brand. They just started out. I believe that this was one of their first products. The reason I am so excited about this palette, not even just the fact that it has a lot of hype around it, but I've heard so many comparisons that the formula of this is exactly like the Adept Cosmetics ACI Formula, which this is one of my favorite shimmer formulas ever. So I'm so excited about the fact that these might be really similar. And I did look through and it seems like there are very similar shades in the Adept Cosmetics formula for every single shade in this palette. So we're gonna go through and do a full comparison. Basically, my thoughts for today's video would be that I would kind of just talk about the ingredients, the amount of product, the price and everything first, and then we can go through and do some comparison swatches. And actually the Adept Cosmetics shadows pull out of their palettes, so I figured I would put them both in 9-pan palettes, have them literally side by side so we can see them the closest together as possible. And then I'm going to do a look with the It's Belle on one side and then Adept Cosmetics shadows on the other, and I guess do a wear test, because for me, one of the best parts about the Adept Cosmetics ACI formula is how they wear, whether I have a glitter primer or not, and whether I'm just chilling at home, whether I'm going to work out, whether I wear my makeup for 6 hours or 12 hours. At the end of the day, the ACI formula always looks amazing still. So I figure if we're giving this a fair run, I really need to see how these wear to be able to call them dupes or not. The Plain Jane and the Ninhydrin palette from Adept I was sent in PR, but then here I have some of their single shadows which I purchased myself. This one was extra thrown in my order, but I think that was just extra. I don't think it has anything to do with me. But these 4 shadows here are the ACI 15 through 18, I believe, and they are available as single shadows. So I just wanted to mention, because I've seen so many rumors that these are the exact same formula, just looking at the ingredients, because I have some on the Plain Jane here and then I have them on the Break the Rules palette. One of the main differences I will say is that there is talc in the It's Belle palette, and there does not appear to be any talc at all in the Plain Jane palette. Other than that, there are a few ingredients that are similar that I can see between them, but it does seem like there's a lot more ingredients in the It's Belle palette. Just throwing it out there really quickly, I'm not good at that side of makeup. I just like wearing it, so I'm trying to compare just like to see. But also something else I would note is that they are both cruelty-free and vegan. The It's Belle palette does have a warning on their website that this is not intended for use around the immediate eye area, but I believe that's just because of the dyes that were used. I did not see a warning with the Adept Cosmetics formulas at all for that. And then also the It's Belle palette says that it is a 36-month shelf life, and the Adept Cosmetics says that it is a 12-month shelf life. I feel like I should have started with this, but as far as price goes, the It's Belle palette was $27.99, and they do have affiliate codes. I will plug my girl Karen Harris. I know she has a code, so I'll leave it in the pinned comments down below, but you can save a little bit of money off with that. And then for Adept Cosmetics, for the Plain Jane, I believe it was 62, Ninhydrin was 68, and I think it's just because the packaging was nicer, because they have some mattes in there, and for me that kind of brings the value down personally. And then the ACI shadows that you can buy as singles were $7 each, I believe, or $28 for the bundle of 4. So the Adept ones are definitely a bit more expensive, but what's confusing to me is that I couldn't find any information on the palette or on the packaging that it came in stating how much product was actually in the palette. And online it says that there are 4.4 ounces of product in this palette, and I think that there must be a typo or something, because I don't think that's correct. I was doing the math earlier, and that would be saying that this one was like about 124 grams, and this would be like 36 grams if I remember correctly. So I don't know that that information is correct, because I mean, just logically looking at these shadows, the Adept ones are so much bigger. One last thing just to mention in case you're curious, with the Adept palettes, I don't have a tool right now, but I'll just use my tweezers. You can actually pop out the shadows and move them around and everything like that. So I really like that part of their packaging. Without any further blabbering, I'm just gonna go through and we're gonna swatch one at a time. And then as I go through, instead of just swatching this palette by itself, I'm gonna go back and forth between the shades that I think are similar, because if you were looking for a review on just this palette by itself, I know it's been done before. So the first shade in here is called Bold, and ooh, that feels really, really nice. Super creamy. It's a pink with an orange shift, or sorry, an orange base with like a hot pink shift technically. So on first touch, that feels really nice, looks very pigmented. You can definitely see the shift going on there. The shadow that I feel is super similar to that is ACI 12, which is also an orange base with a pink shift. Looks very, very similar. Okay. Yeah, I mean, those look like I just swatched the same exact shadow. We have this shade right here called Stay Radical, and it looks like one of my favorite shadows from Adept. It's like this really beautiful, sparkly, warm pink base with an orange and a green shift, and I mean, you can see it there. I would definitely call that one a multi-chrome. It is truly so pretty, and the formula feels really, really nice and creamy. I mean, look at that. So that is super similar to the shade ACI 15 from Adept, which is available as a single. You know what? Okay, the Adept one feels a little tiny bit less creamy, actually. But color-wise, they look almost the exact same. As I'm moving it around, I feel like whenever the light isn't on it, I don't know if you can kind of see right there, the base of the Adept one is just slightly lighter, slightly more peachy. I'm only saying that because like I'm trying genuinely to see if there is any difference at all. I mean, I would honestly call them dupes 100%, but if I'm like really trying, I can see just the tiniest subtle difference there. So next we have this green, which is called Not Listening, and it looks like a really beautiful green shift with like a kind of like reddy, grungy base. And even the texture of that feels the exact same as the shadow I'm going to compare it to from Adept, because it's like a little bit more like mushy in the pan. I don't know if you can see that. Like you could literally just move it around. And that's exactly how ACI 9 is from the Plain Jane palette. You look, I just hit pan on that, and that's just because it moves around a lot. See, I'm just gonna push it back. We don't need to see the pan there yet. So there's its bell, and there's Adept. Yep, exactly the same. Next we have the shade called Make Me, and this looks like a really beautiful, soft, creamy purple with like a little bit of like a golden shift to it. And I think the shade closest to that is going to be this one right here called ACI 4. Let's see. I don't know that I would say those are perfect dupes actually. ACI 4 is a little bit like less bright. Yeah, I think that's the closest that we have though. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and compare. Here's its bell. And here's Plain Jane. Oh yeah, the Plain Jane one is definitely better on that. It has more of a gold sparkle through it. It looks a little bit prettier, where the It's Belle one kind of just looks a little bit more lackluster, just looking at them right next to each other. I totally just accidentally dropped the shadow into this one. Luckily I can fix it though. So we have the shade Go Rogue, and this shade looks so stunning. It's a super soft, creamy, like purple, blue, pink shifting thing. And that reminds me, gosh, I think it's gonna be closest to ACI 11 right here. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, very, very similar. Don't think I see a difference. Here's its bell, And here's ACI 11. You know what? The It's Belle one actually might be a little tiny bit more intense on the shift. Maybe just a little bit, like it looks like the Adept one is a tiny bit more sheer. Next we have the shade Eager for More. And this looks like such a beautiful sparkly green. Super, super intense. Looks very similar to ACI 14, one of the single shadows. Swatch them. I feel like those two feel a little bit different, like texture-wise. I think that the Adept one is a little bit more satiny, and the It's Belle is a little bit more sparkly, which I actually definitely prefer to have it more sparkly. The tone is pretty much the same though. So here's It's Belle, and here's Adept. So yeah, very similar, but I like the It's Belle one better. I don't know if you can tell, it's just like up just a notch of sparkles. You'd probably get a pretty similar look out of either of them, but the It's Belle looks a little nicer. We have the shade Your Choice, which is a really beautiful, like soft, light blue with like a little bit of a purple shift. It's a little bit more of a transparent moment, and that one is super similar to the shade ACI 8. What they look like next to one another. So here's It's Belle and Adept. So yeah, those are pretty much the same. You know, the Adept again might be just a tiny bit more sheer. So I feel like I can't say that every single one of these is exact. I see small differences, but at the same time, if you own the It's Belle palette, there's probably no reason to buy Plain Jane at all, or vice versa. Next we have the shade Rebel, which is a very satin, super intense true red, super pretty, and that is pretty much the exact same as ACI 13, one of the singles from Adept. So there's what they look like next to one another. Rebel almost looks like a tiny bit more orange. Do you see that? I feel like I see that. Like they're not the exact same, but they're so close. There's It's Belle, and there's Adept. Oh yeah, definitely a difference between those two. In fact, again, the It's Belle looks a little bit more intense. Okay, last but not least, we have this shade right here, which is called Just Swatch, and it's like a very creamy rose gold, but like a muted rose gold kind of shade. And that looks like, let's see, I think that's gonna be closer to this one right here called ACI 3. Yep. They're not the exact same tone, and the Adept one is a little bit more shifty. I don't know if you can kind of see the gold there moving more. So there's It's Belle, and there's Adept. So yeah, I like the Adept better for that one. I guess it kind of goes back and forth, but overall you can see so similar. So similar. So here's what they look like up close, all swatched out. I feel like it doesn't even do justice how pretty these are. Here is the Break the Rules palette versus the Adept shadows. So you can see how similar they look next to one another. Yep. And then just in case you're curious, here are the shadows that are left from Plain Jane, which are some really beautiful ones. This is a favorite. This one right here is a favorite. This one's really nice as well. Out of the single shadows, the only one that wasn't comparable is this light green one that was left. And then from the Ninhydrin palette, there was nothing similar at all. They're all not duped, but I believe I saw It's Belle sneak peeking that they're gonna do a Break the Rules 2 palette. So I'm really curious if it's gonna end up being these kind of colors, if it's gonna be the same. I don't know. So I already went ahead and primed my eyes with the Milani eyeshadow primer, and for mattes today I'm gonna go into the Ofra x Samantha March Life's a Draft palette, and I'm gonna start off with this mauve right here through my crease. Just gonna go ahead and throw that in and start lightly buffing it out. When I did my first impression on this palette, I mentioned that I really liked the mattes and I really liked the tones of the palette, and I could see it being something that I would reach back into specifically to use with my like really special indie shimmers. So I thought today would be the perfect moment to do that. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and take this mauve right here, and I'm just gonna put that directly into my crease for a little bit of extra depth. And then I'm gonna take the Plummy matte and use that to deepen up my outer V just a little bit. Just going back over that with my big fluffy brush. So I'm gonna start off with the shade Bold, this hot pink right here, and I'm gonna use that along the lower lash line. Just gonna pick up a little bit, and I'm gonna put it on about the outer half. Pull it up a little bit. Then I'm gonna go ahead and take the Adept shade that's similar. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head since I kind of moved them around, but I think you get it, it's okay. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Okay. I'm gonna go back into the other shade on the other side just so that they're the same. I'm gonna go ahead and take the shade Just Watch, and I'm gonna put that on the front half of my lower lash line. Going into this shade. I can definitely tell the Adept one is a little bit more sparkly. I like that one a little bit more. For my inner corner, I'm gonna go ahead and use the shade Your Choice. I love the color of this. Just gonna pop it on. So pretty. You know the drill. I don't know if you can tell right there, but the Adept one, like I said, is a little bit more sheer. So it's still showing up sparkly and everything, but I feel like this side just looks a little bit more pigmented. Now, for the truly difficult decision, what to do for the lid. I'm kind of torn because I really want to go in with these two purples, but I'm like, should I just do one or the other? Should I try to do both just because I'm trying to use as many shades as possible? Maybe I'll go in with like the lighter one, or technically, I mean, I guess I should be focusing on this palette. I'll go in with this one, Make Me first, and then go into Get Rogue. Okay, I think I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna start off with Make Me. I'm gonna use my finger and pop that on the inner half of my lid. Same on this side. Again, this is another moment where I feel like the Adept looks better because it's a little bit more sparkly. I don't know if you can kind of see the difference there. Now for this one. Such a pretty creamy shade. Popping that on the outer half. So in case you're wondering, I've been wiping off my brushes and my fingers this whole time, every time I switch sides, just to make it fair. Okay, overall they look pretty much the same. Like I said, I can see the tiniest subtle differences, but I'm just really curious to see how they're gonna wear throughout the rest of the day. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of a later wear test because it is, what time is it? It's already 2:57 p.m. right now because I was trying to get my video ready earlier and everything, and my son was watching a movie. He was watching Wall-E actually, and he wanted to finish it before I filmed, but hopefully I'll still get in maybe 7 or 8 hours. I'm gonna throw on some mascara and lip gloss real quick, and then I'll be right back to give you like my final check-in before I go. All right, y'all. I mean, I've just been sitting here kind of admiring my shadow, and I'm kind of shook at just how similar these products are, and I have questions, but I will be back in a few hours to let you know how it wore. All right, y'all, it is currently 10:14 technically, so it has been just a little bit over 7 hours, and I thought it'd be a good time to go ahead and check back in and show you guys how it wore because I'm ready to take my makeup off, and I feel like overall, I would say that both sides genuinely look pretty much the exact same. So I would say that the Adept ACI formula, the It's Belle formula, pretty much dupes for one another. Very similar colors, very tiny, how many times can I say tiny? Subtle differences. So I hope this video was helpful for you, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.